Welcome back into the Daily Dose. I'm Jeff Hansen. The show's brought to you by Give'emHellBrigham.com and by CougarFeast.com. Check out CougarFeast.com and have your game day preparation, your tailgate food, all put together and sent to your house, pre-cooked, ready to roll for you. And you get some BYU swag as well. Feastbox, they're helping BYU out on the NIL front. Big sponsor of BYU. They are putting everything into a box. Couple of proteins, couple of sides, an appetizer, bunch of BYU swag, plates, silverware, and they're sending it to you the day before the game so that on game day, all you got to do is wake up, heat up your food, and you're ready. It's great. It's delicious. I had the brisket box last week. It was fantastic. It was very, very good. So check that out, CougarFeast.com. 10% of sales go to Feeding the Hungry via their Full of Hope Foundation. And again, they're helping BYU out on the NIL front. So you're helping get some players paid as well. It's a win-win-win. Check that out, CougarFeast.com. BYU sucked on Saturday. Can we just say that? We could say that, right? I mean, we could talk about it openly. BYU fans across the board, they're on some level of panic scale, on the panic meter. Some of us are looking for the silver lining, trying to find, okay, maybe this can be turned around really quickly, not that big of a deal, but we're all still a little bit nervous. Some of us are ready to fire coaches, bench quarterbacks, bench players, and then everywhere in between. BYU fans, in some degree or at some degree, are a little panicked about the offense right now, and they should be. BYU's offense sucked. Like, there's just no other way to say it. They played so poorly. Southern Utah, on the other hand, they went to Arizona State, and they played a very, very close game. They probably should have beaten the Sun Devils. So you would think that Thunderbird program, they're down there in Cedar City. They're confident. They're feeling like, hey, maybe they can go up into Provo and steal a win against the an in-state Power 5 school. That would be huge for that Southern Utah program. But head coach DeLane Fitzgerald, he joined the Southern Utah radio show. I guess it's his radio show, the coach's show. He joined the show this week, and he talked a lot about BYU. And he's singing a very different tune about BYU than what most BYU fans are saying right now. He's not pushing a panic button. In fact, it's quite the opposite. He's very, very confident that BYU is going to look like an entirely different team on Saturday. I want to read some of the quotes directly from Coach Fitzgerald this week. He said, BYU alumni are in a little bit of a panic because of how they played Saturday night. We do not expect that same team to show up against us on Saturday. They have good football coaches. Their offensive coaches will go in and fix their ills on offense this week, and they'll come out and play better. Their transfer quarterback will play better. Very confident. Said it very matter-of-factly. This BYU team is going to be better. He went on to say this, college football programs that are coached well, and BYU is, they make their biggest jump from week 1 to week 2. We're going to make a jump from Arizona State to BYU. We're going to make a jump. BYU is going to make that same jump. And then he went on to say he even compared BYU to Arizona State. And this quote was really transparent. I wouldn't have expected a coach to say something this open, this candidly. But it's maybe it's coach. I don't know what it is. We'll talk about it in a second. But let me just read it to you directly. He straight up compared BYU to Arizona State. And he said BYU is a lot better than Arizona State. If they play Arizona State this Saturday, they beat them 28-0, 35-7. A lot better football program than Arizona State. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We have to improve, and we have to improve immensely this week. Well, okay, Coach Fitzgerald, he's not leaving anything to be desired or to be interpreted. He's straight up saying BYU is 4 touchdowns better than Arizona State, which is kind of shocking given how BYU played on Saturday. So either he thinks Arizona State is very bad or he's very confident that BYU is going to turn things around. And I think maybe that's the reality, right? The way that BYU played from a football coach's perspective. Could Coach Fitzgerald just be given a coach speak, right? Trying to gas BYU up in hopes of maybe getting their ego inflated and they overlook SUU and he could punch them in the mouth? Sure. Maybe that's what he's trying to do. But I don't think that he can really plan on a bunch of BYU players being real tuned in to Cedar City radio to hear his quotes. I think he's being honest. I think he's being transparent, and he's expecting a very, very good BYU football team on Saturday afternoon. Compare that to BYU fans, and I think we're all a little nervous, like I say, whether we're trying to find the silver linings and maybe push our concerns to the side and focus on the good things, or we're in the camp that's ready to fire coaches. Every BYU fan's a little bit nervous about that offense after the way they played against Sam Houston State. Frankly, I don't know that BYU could score 35 points against anybody, given how they played on Saturday. But Coach Fitzgerald is happy, honest, quick to say that BYU would score 35 points, not just against them, but against Arizona State. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But Coach Fitzgerald is going to have that Southern Utah team gassed up, motivated, and ready to go. We're not going to do our SWOT analysis this week where we compare the BYU offense to the Southern Utah defense and vice versa, because frankly, BYU has advantages from a talent standpoint at each and every position. This is a game that Southern Utah's just outmatched. That's not trying to overlook Southern Utah or anything like that. It's just the reality. From a talent standpoint, Southern Utah's just overmatched. They just are. But Coach Fitzgerald is a heck of a football coach, and his team loves to play for him. They almost beat Arizona State, and here's what he said about that game. He said, we had a puncher's chance to win that game, and we came out swinging. That is what this football program does. Our young men fought and fought hard. BYU didn't fight against Sam Houston State. The defense did. We're only talking about the offense. BYU didn't fight. BYU showed up, and they were in walkthrough mode, period. It was terrible. The offense sucked. If they come out and they play like that, Southern Utah will punch them in the mouth. I don't know that Southern Utah will win. I think even worst case scenario, it looks very similar to that Sam Houston State game. That's maybe BYU's worst case scenario in this one. But Southern Utah is going to come out swinging. Coach Fitzgerald, his kids play hard. They are not going to care that they're outmatched at every position. They will not care that it's LaVell Edwards Stadium and that it's BYU. Coach Fitzgerald has his team motivated, has his team gassed up and ready to go. BYU is going to come out, and we're going to find out if BYU has a glass jaw or if they can take that punch against Sam Houston State and respond in the way that Coach Fitzgerald seems to think that BYU will. I think BYU could turn this around pretty quickly. I look through, when you look at the mistakes, I don't see very many mistakes that aren't fixable. I see a ton of mistakes, but they were mental. They were effort. They weren't talent mistakes. They were effort mistakes, and they were mental mistakes. And to me, those are fixable. But players and coaches have to motivate, and these players have to want to. Their give a darn has to be through the roof. They didn't have any give a darn against Sam Houston State. They better have give a darn against Southern Utah. They're going to get embarrassed. They're going to get punched in the mouth once again. I think this team has some give a darn. I think this team has some pride, and I think they're going to respond well and fix a lot of those mental miscues. But for now, I mean, we got to see. We got to see what's going to happen because they just didn't inspire a ton of confidence against Sam Houston State. Appreciate you guys tuning in to the Daily Dose. If you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button. And until next time, give them hell.